His first wife, Ojugo, fell to her knees before him, tears streaming down her face. "My king, have you lost all reason? Do you slaughter your own flesh and blood? What if the gods have finally blessed you with the son you so desire? What if your hair is among these children? Please, my husband, do not do this." Her words only stoked the flames of his fury. "I care nothing for a son this night, Ojugo." He spat. "Any child born today is an enemy, and enemies must die." Once upon a time, in the heart of the eastern lands of Nigeria, there flourished a mighty kingdom called Anam. Its soil was rich, kissed by the sun and nourished by the great river that snaked through its borders. Year after year, the people of Anam toiled from dawn till dusk, their backs bent in the fields, their hands calloused from endless labor. Their harvest was always bountiful, granaries overflowed, and traders from distant lands came to marvel at Anam's abundance. Yet, for all their hard work and prosperity, the people of Anam remained shackled in poverty. This was no accident. It was not the wrath of the gods, not the misfortune of fate. It was the doing of one man. Anam was not just a village. It was a kingdom, forged in blood and fear, ruled by the iron hand of King Obiajulu. His name alone sent chills down the spines of men. He was a storm, a merciless force of nature that swept through the lands, leaving ruin in its wake. He craved power, not just over his own people, but over everyone within his reach. He had a simple strategy: find a weaker village, unleash his warriors, burn their homes to the ground, drag their men away in chains, and claim their lands as his own. This was how Anam, which had once been a small, humble settlement, grew into a sprawling empire. But Obiajulu was never satisfied. Power fed his hunger, but it did not quench it. He worked his people to the bone, demanding not just a fair share of their harvest, but 2/3 of it. The penalty for failing to meet his expectations was brutal. If a family's yield was too low, they were punished, flogged, or worse, some unlucky souls paid the ultimate price with their lives. For in Obiajulu's eyes, a man who could not feed his king was of no use to the kingdom. Obiajulu saw himself as more than a king. He believed he was a god walking among mere mortals. The people of Anam did not dare to argue. To speak against the king was to invite death into one's home. Obiajulu became a wealthy man. He had over 20 wives, but only one was truly his queen, his first wife, Ojugo. The rest were nothing more than symbols of his conquests, spoils of war, taken from the villages he had crushed under his feet. With every new land he claimed, he chose the fairest maidens and forced them into his palace, their beauty reduced to mere trophies on his shelf. Yet, for all the women he gathered, for all the prayers he offered, and the sacrifices he made, his wives bore him daughter after daughter, but never the heir he so desperately desired. The kingdom whispered that the gods had cursed him, that his wickedness had sealed his fate. No matter how many times He filled his palace with new women, no matter how many sacrifices he made at the shrine of Ogugu. His arms remained empty of a son, and this infuriated him. The thought of his bloodline ending with him sent him into a blind rage. His frustration boiled over, and in his anger he ruled with even greater cruelty. He crushed his subjects beneath his will, pushing them harder, demanding more. The gods may have denied him a son, but he would not be denied his power. And so the kingdom of Anam stood mighty, feared by all, but within its walls its people lived in quiet suffering, waiting, hoping for the day the storm of Obiajulu's reign would finally pass. One day, a thick cloud fell upon Anam. The sun, mighty and unyielding, vanished behind the thick, eerie cloud, plunging the kingdom into an unsettling darkness. Birds ceased their songs. The winds blew so strong and fiery, and an unsettling silence gripped the air. The people of Anam trembled in fear, their hearts pounding with an unexplainable dread. Never before had they seen such a thing. Day had become night, and terror crept into every home. Even King Obiajulu, feared by all, felt unease claw at his chest. He may have been a tyrant, but he was not a fool. This was no ordinary storm. Sensing that something greater than his own power was at play, he summoned the village diviner, Aju, the revered mouthpiece of the gods, the kingdom's deity, Ogugu. Aju arrived at the palace, his face grave, his eyes filled with knowing sorrow. The moment he stepped into the king's court, the air seemed to thicken with unseen forces. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, before the old man finally spoke. "The gods are angry, my king." Aju's voice rang through the hall like the toll of a funeral bell. "Your hands drip with the blood of the innocent. Your reign of terror has reached its end." A hush fell over the palace. The king's warriors, always eager to carry out his cruel will, glanced at each other uneasily. Aju lifted his staff and pointed it outside toward the sky. "The darkness that covers Anam is no accident. It is a warning. You have brought this upon yourself, Obiajulu, and tonight the one who will bring about your downfall shall be born. And only then will this cloud be lifted off Anam." King Obiajulu's eyes burned with fury. His hands tightened into fists. "Lies!" he thundered, his voice shaking the very walls of his palace. "No one shall be born to challenge me. I will not allow it." In his rage, he made a decree that sent horror rippling through the land. "Kill them," he bellowed. "Every child born this day, whether male or female, must die. Let the blood of the newborns wash away this curse." Aju laughed out loud. "Obiajulu, no matter what you do, you cannot stop this. The day you die is the day night falls in daylight again, just like this day." With that, Aju turned and walked away, but Obiajulu's heart was already hardened. The kingdom erupted in chaos. Soldiers stormed homes with merciless precision, dragging wailing mothers from their huts, snatching infants from their arms before they could even draw their first full breath. Women who had gone into labor that day found themselves surrounded by cold, unfeeling warriors. their blades eager to carry out the king's monstrous will. But fate was cruel even to the wicked. As if in mockery of Obiajulu's desperation, that night saw an unusual number of births. Women across Anam groaned and screamed as new life forced its way into the world. Even within the palace walls, 3 of the king's wives went into labor. Yet, Obiajulu did not hesitate. His order was final. Every child born that night would die, even those of his own blood. His first wife, Ojugo, fell to her knees before him, tears streaming down her face. "My king, have you lost all reason?" she pleaded. "Would you slaughter your own flesh and blood? What if the gods have finally blessed you with the son you so desire? What if your heir is among these children? Please, my husband, do not do this." Her words only stoked the flames of his fury. He turned to her, his eyes alight with something beyond rage. Madness. "I care nothing for a son this night, Ojugo." He spat. "Any child born today is an enemy, and enemies must die." Ojugo recoiled at his words, her heart shattering into pieces. The man she had once loved was lost to his own cruelty. When she tried to speak again, he raised his hand in warning. "Defy me, and you will join them in death." So she fell silent. One by one, his wives gave birth. They all had sons. Imagine the irony. And one by one, the infants, innocent, helpless, were taken away and slain before they could even cry out. The night was soaked in sorrow and blood. The wails of grieving mothers filled the air like a funeral song. Blood stained the hands of the king's men. And yet Obiajulu remained unmoved, seated upon his throne like an unfeeling god. But not even a man as ruthless as Obiajulu could stand against fate. The child born by his wives were no ordinary babies. They were indeed the chosen one. And each time he was born, he was killed. And each time he was killed, he was born again. What he did not know, what he could never have imagined, was that the child who would end him would still return, no matter how many times he killed him. He was a demigod, born under the will of the gods themselves. Obiajulu did not know that no matter how many swords he raised, he could not stop what was coming for him. In the same kingdom of Anam, nestled in a small humble hut, lived Amadi, a poor but hard-working farmer who was also a skilled hunter. Life had been unkind to him and his wife, Nkoli. They got married at a very tender age, but for 15 long years, they had loved each other fiercely, their bond unshaken by sorrow that shadowed their home. Yet in all those years, their love bore no fruit. Nkoli's womb remained empty. Desperation had driven them to every shrine, every healer. Month after month, they subjected themselves to spiritual cleansings, offered sacrifices of goats, chickens, even their hard-earned money, anything to please the gods, to break whatever curse kept them childless. Yet, nothing changed, until the day everything did. Nkoli woke up one morning, feeling a strange sensation deep within her. At first, she dismissed it as another trick of her body. But as the days passed, her body changed, and she could no longer deny what was happening. She was with child. Their joy knew no bounds. Nkoli wept tears of gratitude, while Amadi lifted his hands to the sky and thanked the gods for finally remembering them. The villagers who had watched their pain for years rejoiced with them. Even the wind seemed to carry whispers of hope. Amadi and Nkoli, though poor, spent every copper they had preparing for their miracle child. They patched up their home, gathered soft fabrics for swaddling, even brought a small wooden carving of a tortoise, an ancient symbol of wisdom for their unborn child. But fate always had its own plans. On the very night Nkoli went into labor, the sky was still dark with the ominous cloud that had fallen over Anam. It was the same night King Obiajulu unleashed his monstrous decree. Fear gripped Amadi's heart like a vice. He had waited 15 years for this child. He would not lose the child now. He would fight, he would run, he would do whatever it took to save the life of his baby. As soon as Nkoli's pains began, her mother, an elderly but strong woman known as Nne, rushed to their hut. "We cannot stay here," she said urgently. "The king's men will come. We must go somewhere safe." Amadi knew exactly where. On one of his hunting expeditions deep in the forest, he had stumbled upon an old abandoned hut. It was hidden far from the village, its roof covered in moss, its walls blending into the wilderness. No one had ever lived there for years. That night, under the cover of darkness, Amadi led his family through the secret paths, his heart pounding at every distant sound. If they were caught, they would all be killed. But miraculously, they did not run into any soldiers. Nkoli's screams echoed through the trees as she fought to bring her child into the world. The hut became their sanctuary. With Nne by her side, she pushed through the pain, and in the darkness that covered Anam, her son was born. A boy. They named him Ofodumeje, but there was no time to rejoice. For fear of being killed, they did not return to the village with the child. Nne hid in the small hut with the baby, waiting until the cloud lifted and the chaos was over. Then they would have to take him far away from Anam, where the hands of the king would never reach him. Amadi and Nkoli would return to the village in order to avoid suspicion, but they would return as soon as the chaos died down. The couple knew that taking him away was the only way to save his life. But for now, no one must know that their child was alive. Amadi and Nkoli returned to the village while it was still dark, and the couple joined the countless other villagers mourning the loss of their child. The massacre continued until finally the cloud lifted. Daylight came with an untold grief. People kept on wailing, but King Obiajulu sat proudly on his throne, now satisfied with himself. He had eliminated every threat to his life, his throne and his kingdom. Or so he thought. Obiajulu had no idea that his nemesis would face him one day, eyeball to eyeball, and on that day, there would be nothing that could save him. The next morning, after the wails of mourning had quieted and grieving neighbors had come to console them, Amadi and Nkoli prepared for the most difficult journey of their lives. They had played their part well, crying alongside the other bereaved parents, their voices blending into the sorrowful chorus of loss that filled Anam. But deep in their hearts, they knew that they had one secret that could cost them everything if discovered. As night fell and the village settled into an eerie silence, they moved swiftly under the cover of darkness. Nkoli clutched a small bundle of their belongings and the little money they had saved over the years. Amadi carried a hunting knife strapped to his waist, his muscles tensed, his ears straining for any sign of danger. Step by cautious step, they retraced their paths to the hidden huts in the forest. The journey felt longer this time, their fear making every rustling leaf and the distant hoot of an owl seem like an omen. When they finally arrived, they found Nne awake, rocking the newborn in her arms. "He's strong," she whispered, her voice filled with quiet pride. Amadi exhaled in relief, but there was no time to rest. The farther they got from Anam, the safer it would be. That very night, with nothing but the stars to guide them, the family fled. They walked without looking back, through dense forests and winding paths, past silent villages. They did not stop, not when their legs ached, or when Nkoli, weakened from childbirth, nearly collapsed. Amadi carried his wife on his back when she could no longer walk, while Nne held the baby close to her chest, whispering prayers to the gods to shield them from harm. Days passed. They journeyed through strange lands, eating only fruits they found along the way, and drinking from clear, running streams. They slept under trees, waking with the first light of dawn to continue their journey, until they came to a small, quiet and peaceful village. It was a place where laughter rang freely in the air, where children played in the open fields, and men and women walked side by side under the golden sun. The village reminded Amadi of what Anam used to be before the darkness of King Obiajulu's rule. "This is the place," Amadi said. His voice was firm with certainty. "We will rebuild a new life here." The village was called Asi. The people of Asi were simple, hard-working folk, and above all, they were kind. When they saw the weary travelers, they welcomed them with open arms, offering them food and a place to rest. But even in the warmth of their hospitality, Amadi knew one thing. He could never reveal the truth about where they had come from. Words traveled fast. He reminded himself, by now everyone would have heard about the unfortunate incident that befell Anam. And if word ever reached the wrong ears that a child had survived the massacre, danger would find them once again. So they became new people. Their past was buried with the ashes of their old lives. With time, Amadi and Nkoli settled into Asi. The village was blessed with fertile lands, and the people were cocoa farmers. Every household had its own cocoa farm, and their harvests were always bountiful. Traders from far and wide came to buy from Asi, and the village thrived in wealth and abundance. Amadi, determined to provide for his family, wasted no time in blending into the rhythm of the village. He worked tirelessly on the farms of others, learning the trade with the same determination that had once made him a skilled hunter. The villagers saw his strength and diligence, and they rewarded him well. Soon, with the money he earned, he started his own small cocoa farm. It was nothing compared to the large plantations of the wealthy farmers, but it was his, and it was enough. But he still never abandoned his old ways. Hunting was in his blood, and the forests of Asi were teeming with game. Night after night, he ventured into the wild, his bow slung over his shoulders, and never once did he return empty-handed. With each passing day, their new life took root. Nkoli found peace, her face no longer lined with worry. Nne cared for little of Odumeje, watching over him like a hawk. For the first time in a long while, Amadi and his family could breathe. Little of Odumeje grew in the peace and tranquility of Asi village. He was such a bubbly little boy, always full of smiles, calm, never troubled anyone, and the people loved him so much. Ofo grew into a fine young man. very hardworking and loved. He would love to help anyone who seemed to be in need. But above everything else, Ofo loved two things the most. One was hunting. Like his father, Ofo had a deep bond with the forest. But unlike other hunters who clutched their charms and whispered prayers before stepping into the unknown, Ofo walked into the heart of the forest without fear. The night with all its mysteries did not frighten him. The rustling of unseen creatures, the whispering of the wind through the trees, the glowing eyes that watched from the shadows, these were not threats to him. The spirits of the forest did not hide from Ofo. They revealed themselves to him, spoke to him in voices only he could hear. They called him Son of the Night. He did not know why. He did not understand why they treated him as one of their own. Perhaps it is because you were born in the forest, Nne would often tease, her wrinkled eyes twinkling with excitement. Yet, deep down, Ofo knew it was more than that. Something inside him told him. The second thing he loved the most was Uju. Uju, the beautiful daughter of Chief Ozoemena, was the most beautiful maiden in all of Asi, at least in the eyes of Ofo. No other maiden compared to her, not in grace, not in charm, not in the way her laughter felt like the softest melody in his ears. To him, as far as he was concerned, there was none like Uju. But fate was cruel. Uju was betrothed to Prince Oge, the crown prince of Asi. Her destiny had already been decided even before she was born. And Ofo knew that his feelings did not matter. But did it stop him from dreaming? Not in the least. He knew that Uju felt the same way he did. He could see it in her eyes. He could see it in the way she smiled at him whenever their paths crossed, which was often, since he went to work in Chief Ozo's cocoa farm with his father. However, they knew that there is nothing that could be done about the way they felt about each other. They both buried their feelings deep inside their hearts, pretending it did not exist. Nothing was said, for they knew that nothing could come out of it. As the years passed, Ofo grew, and so did his love for Uju, and also did the small village of Asi. Since the day Amadi and his small family arrived, the village had been blessed beyond measure. Their cocoa harvest multiplied 1,000-fold, bringing wealth and prosperity beyond imagination to Asi. But peace was a fragile thing. One day, without warning, everything changed. Asi prospered beyond imagination. What was once a quiet village hidden in the heart of the land became a beacon of wealth and abundance. Its name traveled far and wide, carried on the lips of traders and travelers. Merchants from the west, from the north, journeyed for days just to trade in Asi, eager to get their hands on its bountiful cocoa harvest and rich resources. Asi became the most talked about village in all the East. But with prosperity comes danger. News of Asi's unimaginable wealth reached King Obiajulu of the almighty Anam kingdom. When he heard of a village flourishing beyond measure, a place untouched by suffering, he was both intrigued. He had a new village to conquer. His curiosity turned to desire. Asi would be his. He sent messengers disguised as merchants to infiltrate the village and report back. Days later, they returned, their faces alight with excitement. "The rumors are true, my king," one of them proclaimed. "Asi is even greater than we imagined. Their land is fertile. Their storehouses overflow, and their people live without fear." A wicked grin spread across Obiajulo's face. He rose from his throne, his eyes dark with greed. Then Asi now belongs to me." Without hesitation, he summoned his greatest warriors, men who had wiped entire villages from existence. He stood before them, his voice like thunder. "Go to Asi, bring it to the ground." His words sent chills around the room. "Bring me their king, and if he has a son, kill him. Let them know that I, King Obiajulo, am now the master of their land and everything in it, both living and non-living." He let out a cruel laugh before adding, "If anyone resists, cut them down where they stand. But the beautiful ones, you know what I like. They belong to me." His warriors, eager for blood, roared in approval. They set off for Asi. The journey was normally long, but on their horses, it would take them a whole day to arrive. On the day Obiajulo's army reached Asi, the village was in celebration. It was a day of joy, of singing and dancing, of drums echoing through the fields. But for Ofodumeje, it was a day of heartbreak. Uju was getting married. She was to become the bride of Prince Oge, the crown prince of Asi. The entire village rejoiced, but Ofo's heart was in turmoil. He had spent years locking his feelings away, knowing they were forbidden, but now the reality of losing her forever was unbearable. He could not watch it happen. Silently before the ceremony began, Ofo disappeared into the only place that brought him peace, the forest. There he went to nurse his hurting heart, and so he was not there when death arrived. The people were still dancing when the first scream tore through the air. Before anyone could react, a storm of armed warriors descended upon Asi, their swords flashing under the midday sun. Chaos erupted. People screamed, running in all directions. Mothers clutched their children. Men grabbed whatever weapons they could find, but it was hopeless. Asi had never known war. They had no soldiers, no defenses. They had lived in peace for generations. How could they have been prepared for the wrath of King Obiajulo? The warriors cut through them like grass. Those who fought back were slaughtered where they stood. The wise ones who knew of Obiajulo's cruelty fell to their knees in surrender or fled, hoping to escape his merciless grasp. By the time the dust settled, Asi was in ruins. Prince Oge was dead. The king of Asi was dragged away in chains, and the women, every maiden of marriageable age, including Uju, the bride of the day, was taken. When the sun set that evening, Asi was no longer the peaceful village it had once been. The survivors sat among the wreckage of their homes, their wails piercing. They cursed Obiajulo's name, crying for their lost sons, their stolen daughters, their fallen king. While all this was happening, Ofodumeje had fallen into a deep sleep on a fallen tree trunk deep in the forest. But his sleep was not peaceful. It was plagued with visions that gripped him in terror. In his dream, he stood in the village square, surrounded by wailing voices. Smoke filled the air. the scent of blood and burning wood choking his lungs. He turned to see people cradling the lifeless bodies of their loved ones, their cries piercing through the chaos. Then his eyes landed on his mother. She was kneeling on the ground, clutching the still body of Nne, shaking her as if she would wake up. Tears streamed down her face, her cries filled with agony. Then, a chilling familiar voice screamed his name. Ofo! Ofo! Help me! He spun round. His heart stopped. It was Uju. She was being dragged away by fierce-looking soldiers, her face twisted in terror. She reached out for him, her fingers trembling, her voice desperate. Ofo, please help me! A sharp pain fell through Ofo Dumeje's heart. He ran towards her, but his legs felt like lead. The faster he tried to move, the farther away she seemed to be. He watched helpless as she disappeared into the shadows. And then he woke up. His entire body jerked violently. His heart hammered against his ribs. A cold chill ran down his spine. Something terrible had happened. He did not know how he knew, but he knew. As if possessed by a force greater than himself, Ofo Dumeje sprang to his feet and ran. He moved like the wind, faster than he had ever been before. His feet barely touched the ground. His breath came in quick, sharp bursts. The trees blurred past him, the branches and thorns clawing at his skin. But he did not stop. He had to get home. By the time he reached the village, his worst fears had come true. The once thriving Asi was in ruins. Smoke curled into the sky. The stench of death filled the air. Women and children were wailing, clutching the bodies of their slain loved ones. Blood stained the ground. Ofo Dumeje's heart pounded. He raced to their hut, dreading what he would find. And there, just as he had seen in his vision, his mother sat on the ground, rocking Nne's lifeless body in her arms. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her lips trembling as she whispered the old woman's name over and over and over again, as if refusing to accept that she was gone. His father Amadi sat nearby on a wooden bench, his hands clenched into fists. His eyes were red, filled with pain, too deep for words. Ofo Dumeje's heart broke into a tiny pieces. His voice came out hoarse. What happened, Papa? His father lifted his head slowly, his expression dark with grief. King Obiajulu has done it again, Ofo Dumeje. His voice was filled with sorrow. Prince Oge is dead. Our king has been captured. And Uju and the other maidens, they have all been taken. That was when Ofo Dumeje lost it entirely. He had heard all about King Obiajulu and how his parents had miraculously escaped to birth him. Somehow he knew what he was going to do. It was as if he had lived these moments before. He closed his eyes and screamed so loud that thunder and lightning struck the sky. Immediately, a thick cloud covered the village and there was a heavy breeze. When Ofo Dumeje opened his eyes, there was fire in his eyes. Both his father and his mother were shocked. They remembered the prophecy that led King Obiajulu into killing all the newborn children that night many years ago. Then they knew that their Ofo Dumeje was the chosen one, Obiajulu's nemesis. Everything now made sense to them. Their escaping Anam was no luck. It was supposed to happen that way, and their coming into Asi was no coincidence. It was destined to be so. As they looked at their calm and bubbly Ofo Dumeje, They could see that he had transformed into an entirely different being. There was a kind of light around him, and his eyes burned. Without saying a single word, Ofodumeje turned on his heels and went off with the wind. But one thing was certain. King Obiajulo had just awakened his greatest nightmare. Back in Anam, Obiajulo lounged on his throne, feeling victorious. A smug smile played on his lips as he awaited his soldiers' return with the news of his latest conquest. The thought of more lands under his rule, more riches to claim, and more power to wield filled him with pride. He leaned back, savoring his triumph. But then, a sudden gust of wind rushed through the village, snuffing out the torches and shaking the wooden beams in the palace. The air grew thick, heavy, suffocating. The room darkened as a dense cloud rolled in, swallowing up Anam. Obiajulo froze. His heart thudded against his ribs. This was familiar. His mind raced back to that fateful night many years ago. The night he had ordered the slaughter of every newborn child. His breath quickened as Aju's prophecy echoed in his ears. Fear, real raw fear, clawed at his chest. He sprang from his throne and ran into his chambers, fumbling for his strongest charms. He tied sacred beads around his wrists, smeared protective chalk over his forehead, and whispered incantations, calling on the spirits to shield him. His hands trembled, but he willed himself to be strong. He was Obiajulo, the mighty king of Anam. No force, mortal or divine, could bring him down. Steeling himself, he stepped back into the throne room, only to find someone waiting for him. Aju. The old seer stood there, his frail body wrapped in red clothes. His eyes were sharp, despite his age. He let out a loud, mocking laugh that echoed through the palace walls. I warned you, Obiajulo. Aju bellowed, shaking his head. I told you that no matter what you do, you could not stop it. You slaughtered innocent children, and yet, the one destined to bring you down still lives. Your nemesis is here. Obiajulo's face twisted with rage and denial. Impossible! Impossible! He shrieked, his voice raw with panic. I killed them all. I made sure of it. How? How did this happen? His breathing was ragged, his hands trembling. Aju chuckled darkly. You think yourself a god. But even the greatest kings cannot fight fate. You contend with the one sent by the gods. He is no ordinary man, Obiajulo. He is a demigod, the son of the night. Your blade cannot cut him. Your charms cannot harm him. He is Ofodumeje, the son of Amadi, a lowly farmer, made so by your own wickedness. Obiajulo's body went cold. A deafening thunderclap split the sky, shaking the palace to its foundations. A bolt of lightning struck the palace gates, and the doors flung open with a loud crash. And there, standing in the threshold, was him. A tall figure loomed in the darkness, his broad shoulders squared, his stance steady like an unshakable mountain. His eyes burned like fire, flickering with an ancient otherworldly power. The storm outside roared in his presence, as if the heavens raged on his behalf. Obiajulo clenched his fists, shaking off his fear. He was not a coward. He had fought wars, crushed kingdoms, spilled blood. He would not fall to some mere man, no matter how terrifying he seemed. He took a step forward, rolling his sacred beads in his palm. With a deep breath, he began his incantations as he stepped out of the palace, calling upon the spirits of his ancestors, summoning his protective forces. He stepped closer, his voice rising, his power swelling. Then, with one swift movement, Ofodumeje reached out and placed his hand on the king's head. There was silence. Obiajulu gasped. His mouth opened, but no sound came. His limbs stiffened, his body locked in place. His arms refused to move. He fell to the ground like a heap of rags. His lips trembled, but no words came out. His eyes darted wildly. In panic, he could see, he could hear, but he could do nothing. He was paralyzed. Ofodumeje's face remained unreadable, but his voice carried the weight of the gods themselves. You prey on the weak, the helpless, the defenseless, he said, his tone steady. And now I meet you in your defenseless state, Obiajulu. The king's eyes widened in terror. But I, Ofodumeje, will not kill you. No, death would be too easy. You will remain like this, trapped in your own body, powerless. You will suffer until the day death decides to take you. Obiajulu wanted to scream, to beg, to curse, but he could do none of those things. Then, a commotion erupted from outside. Heavy footsteps, the clang of metal. The soldiers had returned. Ofodumeje slowly turned toward the sound, his fiery eyes narrowing. He was waiting. At that point, King Obiajulu knew that his end had just begun. The air was thick with tension as the soldiers stormed into the palace courtyard, their spears raised, their swords gleaming under the flickering torchlight. Their boots pounded against the earth, their war cries echoing into the night. They had returned from battle victorious, expecting to see their king sitting high upon his throne, waiting to receive them with praises, as usual. But what they saw instead sent a chill down their spines. Standing before them was a lone figure, his presence exuding a power unlike anything they had ever encountered. Then Ofodumeje turned to face them, his burning eyes sweeping over the battalion. The moment his gaze fell upon them, many hesitated. Some clutched their weapons tighter, trying to shake off the unnatural fear creeping into their bones. Others took a step back, instincts screaming at them to run. But their leader barked an order. Attack! Kill him where he stands. With a roar, the soldiers surged forwards. Blades flashed in the darkness. Spears flew through the air. Arrows whistled as they raced toward their mark. Ofodumeje did not move. The first soldier reached him, swinging a massive sword at his head. Ofo raised a single hand and caught the blade mid-swing. The metal groaned in protest, twisting like softened clay in his grasp. With a flick of his wrists, he shattered the weapons into 1,000 pieces. Gasps rang through the air, but there was no time to react. Ofodumeje lunged. Like a force of nature, he moved through the ranks, striking down men as though they were nothing more than blades of grass. His fists scratched into skulls. His feet shattered bones. He did not wield a weapon. He was the weapon. A soldier swung an axe towards his back. Ofodumeje turned just in time, grabbed the man by the throat. The soldier's eyes bulged as he struggled, kicking and clawing. Ofodumeje's grip tightened, and with a single movement, he crushed the life from him. The sharp edges of their swords tore through the air, aimed at his chest, but the blades struck and shattered as if they had hit a solid rock. The soldiers staggered back, eyes wide with horror. Ofodumeje did not give him the chance to retreat. He grabbed the man's arm and flung him across the courtyard. The soldier's body hit the palace wall with a sickening crunch. The battle raged on, but it was no battle at all. It was a massacre. Ofodumeje moved like a storm, an unstoppable force. He twisted, ducked, struck, his every movement precise, his every blow deadly. The soldiers of Anam, once feared, once unstoppable in their own right, fell before him like dry leaves, caught in a violent wind. Some tried to flee. He did not let them. One by one, he cut them down. Their weapons were sharp, but they could not pierce him. Their numbers were great, but they meant nothing before his wrath. By the time the last soldier fell, the palace courtyard was silent, save for the crackling torches and the heavy breathing of the lone victor. Ofodumeje stood amidst the sea of bodies, his chest rising and falling. Blood stained the ground, the walls, his hands. But not a single drop of it was his own. And there, sitting motionless, trapped in his own helplessness, was King Obiajulo. Ofodumeje turned to face him once more. The mighty king, once feared by all, was now nothing more than a prisoner in his own body, forced to witness the downfall of his kingdom, unable to lift a finger to stop it. Ofodumeje crouched beside him. You built your kingdom on the blood of the innocent, Ofodumeje said. Now you will live long enough to see it crumble. The battle was over, but his work was not yet finished. He had come for more than vengeance. He had come for Uju. His Uju. Just then the thick cloud lifted, and the golden rays of the sun returned, bathing Anam in a brightness it had not seen in years. The heavy air of fear and oppression vanished with the darkness, replaced by the crisp scent of freedom. A familiar voice, soft, called out his name. He turned, his heart skipping a beat. Uju stood before him, her eyes wide with disbelief, her lips slightly parted, as if struggling to find the right words. The battlefield, the slain soldiers, the fallen tyrant, none of it mattered in that moment. Ofodumeje's blazing eyes slowly dimmed as he looked around him. The rage that had consumed him moments ago faded, and he wiped his hands absently on his garments, as though washing away the remnants of war. Uju stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. So the prophecies were true. You are the chosen one. How did we not see it? Ofo shook his head. How could you all see it when even I could not? She exhaled deeply, her eyes brimming with emotions. Thank you for saving us, Ofo. I don't know what would have happened to us if you had not come. But he shook his head again, this time more firmly. It was not me, Ujunwa, he said. I am only a tool in the hands of the gods. All of this, it was meant to happen. The people of Anam, who had hidden in their homes the moment the dark cloud descended, now emerged cautiously from their hiding places. Those in the palace and the surrounding village square peered out, their eyes widening in awe at the sight before them. Their king, once feared, once untouchable, now sat paralyzed and helpless. Then one voice rose in a cheer, another joined, and soon the entire kingdom erupted in joyous celebration. They sang, They danced, they wept, this time not out of sorrow, but in sheer relief. The name of Odumeje spread like wildfire across the land, whispered with reverence and gratitude. The bodies of Obiajulu's soldiers were carried to the evil forest, where their spirits would disturb no one. As for the fallen king, he was dragged out of the palace and placed beneath the Iroko tree in the heart of the village square. There he sat day and night, his body useless, his voice stolen, his mind trapped within a prison of regret. Each day, the villagers passed by, shaking their heads at the pitiful sight of the once mighty tyrant. The children sang mocking songs as they threw stones at him. When the sun blazed, it scorched him. When the rains fell, they drenched him. No one lifted a hand to offer him shelter. Meanwhile, Ofodumeje led the rescued captives back to Asi. But their joy was not without sorrow. Their beloved king had not survived the ordeal, and the people mourned him deeply. But they did not remain in mourning for long. Asi was their home, and together they had to rebuild it. As for Ofodumeje and Uju, there was nothing standing between them anymore. Their love, once a forbidden dream, was now the foundation of a new era. To honor their savior, the people of Asi made Ofodumeje their new king, and he chose Uju as his queen. This time she walked towards him, not as another man's betrothed, but as his, and his alone. Under their rule, Asi flourished beyond imagination, becoming a land of prosperity, wisdom, and strength once more. The peace that Ofodumeje restored stretched far beyond Asi, reaching every village in the east, including Anam. No more wars, no more tyrants, only growth and unity and abundance. And so the tale of Ofodumeje, the son of the night, the chosen one, the conqueror of the wicked king Obiajulu, was passed down through generations. To this day, the people of Asi still tell the love story of Ofodumeje and Uju, the warrior king and the maiden who had always held his heart. Hey lovers! Thank you all for your support. I want to use this medium to say thank you very much. This community is 1 year old today. Yay! And I want to thank you all because you have made this journey seamless. You have made it an amazing one for me. I have been able to learn, unlearn, and relearn, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys. So I am indeed very grateful to all of you who have been supporting me from day one up until this day. Thank you very, very much. May God continue to bless you all abundantly, and say amen to all of your secret heart desires and all of your prayers. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your love and your support. And before I forget, thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button. And to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who would enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Remember, hit the like button down below as it would help to push this video to a wider range of audience. Share, drop a comment, and subscribe. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.